All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Founders Cut. Today, I'm here with Larissa, co-founder and CEO of Coterie. I'm super excited to have this chat with her. I think what they're building is unique, something I haven't really seen before, but it makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons that I'm sure we'll get into. But before we get started, I always like to start these by asking for the founder that I'm talking to talk more about who they are and how they got to where they are today, building their company. So, Larissa, if you could just kind of talk to us about a little bit more about the background of how you got to becoming the co-founder and CEO of Coterie.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Adam. Yeah, I have a pretty unique background before kind of even getting into Coterie. I have a master's in museum management, not a very typical degree for a lot of founders. That's from the UK. And then I worked in pharma in New York. And then ultimately, I was a management consultant at Deloitte before moving into tech. And then prior to co-founding Coterie, I worked at two tech companies, and most recently, the last one was Canada's largest fintech, and I was C-suite there and scaled them from kind of the seed stage to post Series B.
Awesome, awesome. And then, how long ago was that prior role before you started Coterie?
So I was there for almost 5 years, and I started Coterie just over a year ago. It was January 2022.
Did you take a
So
little bit of a break in between those
yeah,
two
I took
opportunities?
yeah. I had this idea, and Coterie was kind of in my mind for a really long time. You know, it's kind of cliche, like a lot of folks, but it was something I just couldn't let go of. I was losing sleep over it. I was trying to work out off the side of my desk, but obviously a scale up, you know, a fintech that was doing really well, didn't have a lot of time. I have little kids, you know, it's hard to do. And I just really found that there was some legs here, but yeah, I took about 3 months off. I finished in October of 2021, and then just did more user research and really kind of wanted to sink my teeth in and see if this really had legs before diving into it and starting off in January.
So let's talk a little bit more about the company itself. You saw a need, you saw an opportunity in community building, but also in sports too. So kind of give a little bit more flavor to what you saw as the potential that decided to make you want to jump off and take a risk.
Yeah, so Coterie now is really it's a platform that brings together people to improve longevity. And our big thesis and belief is that ultimately connection is the core piece of how you improve longevity, right? There's a lot of other factors, of course, diet, exercise, health, but we think the kind of human connection is a really big piece that's often kind of getting left out of a lot of the conversations around longevity, and not just like how long you live, but like how happy you are when you live, right? Um, and so we started this platform to focus on women and bringing them together through a common interest, which is sport, which you've talked about and touched on. And as somebody, you know, I really felt the pain point, you know, like most founders that are inside founders that found these issues because it affects them personally. I didn't identify as an athlete. I have three little kids now. I have a busy career. And I found it really hard to pick up new sport or get involved in, you know, find my community when I wasn't, you know, a pro athlete or kind of found like I naturally fit in with this group. But I wanted to stay active and I wanted to stay social. And so sport meant something different to me. And that's where I kind of found that I'm not the only one who feels that way. And as you age, sport can just be such a great equalizer, and it can be really a great way to build those connections and find people that you have a common interest with before kind of getting into divisive topics like politics and religion and all those other things. So it has a great ability to bring people together.
Yeah, and so maybe just at a high level, giving folks that are listening and hearing this for the first time, how the platform works.
Yeah, so the platform, we could talk about the stage we're at in a sec, I'm sure, but we're very early days. So the platform essentially gives it's for women right now, and there's two sides to it. So the first is kind of content education. What we found and what we heard from a lot of women is that they don't even know where to get started. They don't know what to wear. They don't know, you know, what equipment do they actually need versus, you know, what's a nice to have and a must have. and some of those kind of core elements. What are certain terminology that can often be a high barrier to entry for a lot of women? You know, there's certain sport and activity is so staunched in kind of history and etiquette. Where do you kind of get started? So we have the whole content side to the platform with different creators that have done kind of short videos, tip sheets, really easy to digest, learning essentially. And then the other side of the platform is the community. This is where we bring women together and have a place for women to talk about something other than kids in their career, which is what most of the products that are out there today really serve that need. And so that's where the product is started today, but we really see this shaping the whole experience of being able to bring women together, both in person and online, to be able to facilitate the like full cycle of the connection piece.
Yeah, I think when we first talked, it was something that really was enlightening to me. You talked about how for a lot of women, they would, well, one of the rate limiting steps or barriers to entry is just like they don't know where to get those questions answered, and they like to research
Mm-hmm.
and plan and kind of think through some things before they actually, you know, make the leap into giving it a try. So I thought that was really cool. That's a nuance that I would have never thought of. But you're right. You know, I think it's something that probably helps give more people an opportunity to try something that they never tried before because they feel like it's a safer place to try something. So very cool to think of it from that regard. Talk about, you know, early days, right? So it's still pretty young in the startup's life. Where are you now? Like, how many cities are you in? How many people have used the platform? Just kind of curious about the early traction.
Yeah, so we're in beta right now. So we're testing with a small group of women across the US. We're in Canada. We have a couple folks that have joined us from Europe, which is really interesting. We kind of we wanted to see organically kind of how the traction went. We spent zero money on kind of marketing or getting it out there. And we have about 300 women on the platform right now. And so we're open to more beta users, and we're beta testing kind of through the rest of this quarter. And then, you know, helping to shape the roadmap of what will look like and what features and what elements we actually need to do a more formal launch. And we'll be focusing on a couple key states in the US for that launch.
Got it. Do you know which states those are yet, or still kind of figuring
We
out?
have some hypothesis, but don't want to
Sure,
say it just yet. We're
sure.
still kind of doing some research and seeing where we also have some super users, right? And I think that's a really important element to kind of scaling and growing, and seeing some people who are really passionate and kind of really want to help us improve and align with us from a mission perspective. But we have a lot of room to grow, like most early tech companies, right? The product needs to kind of take shape and grow. So I think it's super useful to have those super users and that really want to help us get there. And so that's a key part of the growth strategy as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as we look further into 2023, obviously expansion and continuing to refine the product are big milestones. Anything else that you're super excited about through the rest of this year that you have on the roadmap that people should keep their eyes out for?
Yeah, I mean we're in the works of doing player matching, which is also a really cool element. I think the actual like facilitation of bringing together, and how we kind of continue that offline online piece. I think as much as technology itself is incredible and has the real power, I think there's also nothing part of our thesis too, which is maybe not, like every tech company, we think there's still such a magical power to the in-person, right? That can't be necessarily replaced. I think it can be supported, and there's, definitely benefit to the tech side, but we think there's a real magic to getting people physically together too. And so we're really excited to bring some pretty unique ways that we envision how to bring people together and how to kind of facilitate that flywheel of the online and offline piece
Hmm.
all in one.
And then obviously you're building a startup that needs to make money. So what's kind of
Yeah.
the model look like from that side of the business?
Yeah, so it's going to be a membership model. So folks join, you get access to content, you get access to the community. There's reliable, dependable content, which is something we've also heard from our users, that they feel there's a trust and a confidence that,
Yeah.
this isn't just somebody, putting out something that's claiming to be an expert and a pro.
Sure.
Obviously Instagram and YouTube, they can be crowded places. And how do you know that there's actual like substance to the content there? So I think that's a real value add that we see for the platform, that people are coming to us with a certain amount of like understanding this is reliable content that is kind of uninterrupted and ad free. So we're looking at a membership model to start.
Got it. No, that makes sense. I think something that's really interesting is obviously early days it's membership, but once the communities get large enough, there's a very compelling reason for the service providers and the event locations and
Yeah.
the recreational sporting places to want to figure out a way to be a part of your platform. So almost building out a marketplace for people that want to use the services, but also people that want to provide the services. So I'm sure there's plenty of cool opportunities that y'all are exploring. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we couldn't agree more. There's a lot of really interesting ways and different collaborations that we can do, and lots of alternative revenue streams. But I think we're also big believers to kind of, hone in on something, improve the like product market fit, and just like get a small piece right before we kind of just go super broad. We want to show expertise and depth.
So I have two questions, and I'll start with the first one. What's keeping you up at night today in terms of the company's development, growth, whatever? Always trying to just kind of get an idea of the problems that founders are dealing with. Obviously, the ones that you're willing to share, of course, but just kind of, I think it's important because I think a lot of founders listen to the podcast too, and so it's always kind of, I don't want to say fun. It's always interesting for other founders to hear that they all have similar problems.
Yeah, they're not alone. We're not alone. Yeah, what's keeping me up at night? There's a lot that keeps me up at night. I would say we want to make sure we add the most value to our users. So that's always like, hey, how are we adding value? Before we think about like capturing, people's time and people's money, I take it really seriously of like, what are we giving first before we're asking for people to give to us? So what's that uniqueness? I think we've definitely heard a lot of great things, but I think there's so much to be done. And I think that's almost like the curse of the founders, right? Like you're just like, oh, there's so much to do. And so it can be hard to stop and acknowledge what you did do, but the road just feels so long. And there's so many things on the product side that we're really excited about, but there's the trade-offs is definitely not so. It's something I'm used to in joining early stage tech companies of just like, how much time and money do you have? You can't do it all. You constantly are making trade-offs. And then the second piece is the money, right? I think I would be, it'd be naive and remiss to not mention, obviously the world is in an interesting point right now. This is not early 2021 when money was, flying around. I think the world is in a bit of a different state. We've got some really phenomenal early investors and angels that have come in, and now we're doing another fundraise, and it's been interesting to kind of hear. I think it's a different time in terms of fundraising, and gives founders and myself a lot to learn, a lot to grow.
Yeah, I think some of the things that founders, the best founders are the ones that can adapt, right, and can stretch the dollar, or it's one of those things where you're right. I think being a second time founder, basically, right? I know you joined that other company, but in my eyes, you were still, pivotal to that startup's growth and development. So you kind of just here are the hardships that we're going to face down the road. So having that foresight will be super, super valuable to y'all as you build. So the second part of the question, based off of the first part, is, what types of folks are you trying to get connected with today? What are the ideal types of introductions that you're going after?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple. We're always interested in meeting people that are interested in this kind of connection and the intersection between technology, longevity, and connection, and how those pieces really work together and how to utilize technology. So I think it's a bit of a niche space, but I know there's quite a lot of folks that are very interested in solving these problems around longevity, right? And I think when we hear about longevity, people often go the very like health tech and scientific way, but there's like a very social piece to it too.
Mm.
And so that's where I think we're very interested and passionate to get linked up to folks that are interested in that trifecta and how those pieces work together. The other is that we're still looking for beta users. We're always happy for people to join the platform. We're, very hungry and eager for feedback. So always would love if other women out there that are interested in checking us out and giving feedback.
Yeah, and remind the folks that are listening, what are the sports that you're currently focused on right now?
So we're currently focused on pickleball and golf. So pickleball is having a real moment,
Yeah,
golf is, I think, something that as women, especially as you kind of age, there's just so many benefits to it from a career perspective, but then also from a community perspective. As you kind of age, it is a sport that really ages well with people, right? It's something that I think a lot of folks have always thought of and think, oh, that was interesting, but I'm not sure how to get started.
sure.
So those are the first two that we're starting with.
Yeah, a couple others that I thought about after we had our initial chat was cycling, and then
Yeah,
also like
high on the list.
and then like walking slash running clubs kind of a thing, because I think
Yeah,
those are some ones that I know that people, when they join a new city, like they move somewhere and they used to do
yeah,
that in their prior uh, community that they lived in, they're always like, "Well, I got to find a new group to do this with," right? So
yeah,
very cool. I mean, honestly, it could be any and all different types of activities, not just sports. So you have
yeah,
like, you're building out the tool, and then you can use that tool in many different scenarios. So very, very cool. Um, any folks, any groups that you want to shout out in terms of just like helping you get to where you are today?
yeah. I would say there's been an amazing kind of founder group in Toronto, where I'm personally physically located. The Coterie, our target is the US. I spend a lot of time there. And have a lot of family there. But in Canada, I think having scaled a company that is very well known within the Canadian tech ecosystem, I was really fortunate enough, from both a fundraising and also just from, a network and a connection piece, like what I'm so focused on, to have a group of founders and mentors that have really been there, done that, is hugely valuable. To your point, like I wasn't a founder in the last company, but I was very early days and was a huge part of that kind of founding story. And it's been really phenomenal to see the other, founders and people who kind of saw the work I did kind of reach out immediately when I said I was going to go do my own thing, and being like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. You're ready for this like uphill battle. And, it's just nice to have people kind of in your corner. And then I also have a group of amazing founder friends that are all US based, that I met through Chief, that have been really phenomenal. And I'm really indebted to them to be able to have, a network to pop out a question to and get a response within an hour kind of thing. So I'd say the people, there's just a lot of people, so I won't name individuals, but both on the investor side and the founder side, that I think it takes a village to raise a startup.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I have a village.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you got a really strong support network, so that's always a blessing to have.
Mm-hmm.
So, if people want to learn more about your product, your platform, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, the best way to find us is Active Coterie. So ActiveCoterie.com. And then we also have on Instagram the Coterie community, at Coterie Community. And then we're pretty active on LinkedIn as well under Coterie. So there's a couple ways you could find us, but especially if there's folks out there that want to be a beta user, feel free to go to our website at activecoterie.com and check us out, and you can sign up there.
Awesome. So activecoterie.com.
Yes.
Any last things you want to throw out there? Shout out. Um, if you got anything else you want to say, the floor is yours.
Um, I would just encourage other people who are thinking about founding a company, right? It's a classic thing. As you can, if you're watching, you can tell from my white hair, I'm no spring chicken. But it is one of those things that obviously until you're passionate and you have something that keeps you up at night, you can't really like, I don't think it's a great idea just to start something for the sake of starting it. But I also think, it took me a really long time because I loved where I was working and what I was scaling and what I was doing. It took me a really long time to kind of have the courage to step out and say, okay, I'm going to bet on myself. Betting on yourself is kind of the hardest bet, I think, sometimes to make. But I guess I'd encourage anyone who's kind of got this nagging feeling or this idea in their head that they want to explore to bet on themselves. You're worth it, and to take that step as a founder and find your tribe of people to help support you.
Yeah, well, I think that's really great advice. And so, for folks that are listening, if you're looking for your tribe of people to try out pickleball or golf, definitely check out activecoterie.com to see if there is a group in your area, or maybe you can be the one that starts the group in your area.
Exactly. Yeah.
Larissa, thank you so much for making the time to talk a little bit more about your startup and your journey to becoming a startup co-founder, excuse me. Really, really appreciate it. And if people want to find you, they can just go to your website or your Instagram, and I'm sure you're not that hard to find. So
Yeah.
thank you again so much.
Thanks for having me, Adam. This was fun.